And welcome, John. Today we're talking to John Cloonan. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Not too bad. I will admit that I took a nap in between work and now, so I'm a little bit more
Okay.
restful, I think. But that's
Okay.
probably because I stay up way too late doing.
Yeah, I can't nap. I'm not. I'm just.
Just can't
It's
do it.
just not me. I can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
I wish I could, to be honest with you.
yeah, I've always been a night owl. I mean, it's just
Mm.
always been part of my nature. And what about you? How do you naturally gravitate?
Um, I used to be a night owl, and then now I've been forcing myself awake to go to the
Mm,
gym for so many years that
yeah.
now I can't, like, sleeping in for me is 7:30, and
Uh-huh.
like I cannot seem to make myself sleep past that hour. So
Yeah. Well, it
um,
feels like you've got a new learned, but you're like your body's learned the new behavior
yeah, it's a
and
learned behavior. So
yeah.
so yeah, so I'm in bed by, like, I'm an old man. I'm in bed like by like 10, and I'm up at 5:30.
Oh,
So
10. That's when the party's getting started, man. I mean, but you probably need to recoup from your hobby. You want to talk about your hobby for a minute?
yeah, absolutely. So I race
Yeah.
motorcycles, and I've been doing that since 1989, I think.
Yeah. Wow.
This season, I'm not actively racing. In fact, you can kind of see in the background there's some trophies on the wall. Those will actually
Uh-huh.
go to the ceiling.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Wow.
but this season, I'm not actively racing because I'm out on the injured list, and my daughter's racing that bike. So,
Oh, I
um,
see. And
but come February, I'll be back on the track again.
yeah, does she kick her old man's ass or not?
Not yet.
Not yet,
Not yet.
but it's
She's
coming.
running about in most tracks. She's running about 2 seconds a lap slower than I am, so I've
Uh-huh.
got time.
Yeah. 2 seconds is a lot in a race.
It sure is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's it's
yeah,
it's it's the difference. It's often the difference between like first and 12th.
yeah.
So
I love the idea of a friendly dad-daughter competition.
oh, it's a ball,
Yeah,
dude. I got to tell you, like, sharing that, because like I said, I've been racing for a really long time,
yeah,
and I absolutely adore it. And being able to share that with my daughter has been utterly spectacular.
yeah.
Like, there's really nothing better.
That's
So
really cool.
plus, what adult, like, what guy, like, what 22-year-old girl, like, desperately wants to hang out with her dad?
Yeah,
Like, I get that.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's fine, but just remember rubber side down. That's the important part, and
all
then
right. Well,
just
that's
go from
that's
there.
why I'm on the injured list, my friend.
That's awesome. So, yeah, so you reached out to me. You answered my
Hmm.
call.
Yeah,
For people talking about just how they got to think about things differently in their life. And so why don't we just start from the beginning? So you
sure.
started off as a fertilized. Okay, but no.
Well, that's about where it began, I think, because
Okay.
we were raised Catholic, so
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there we go. Let's go into that then. So, and tell me about your early years.
sure. So, I was born to Irish Catholic parents. They weren't crazy devout, but we were, church on Sunday kind of folks, for many, many years. Well, not many, many years, but like I never, I mean, straight up, I'm not sure I ever believed any of it.
Yeah.
It was, I'm a fairly logical guy. And as a kid, I was into the sciences and,
Uh-huh.
and, and all that stuff. And I read endlessly. Like, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I couldn't make sense of the idea of what I was hearing in the church versus what I was reading in all the stuff that I was doing. And it never made any sense. And so I think I was 8 or 9 when I just looked at my parents and I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't buy into it. It doesn't make sense to me. And so I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
Um,
Eight or
and what
nine, huh?
was 8 or 9,
I
yeah.
mean
And
that.
what was actually very, very funny about that was, is my dad was like, okay.
Yeah.
And he stopped going too. He just like, yeah, screw it. So
Sounded like maybe he had his own doubts
I
about
think he
things.
did. He's a pretty traditional dude, but I think he still believes in some god of some kind. But
Uh-huh.
like, a lot of the church stuff wasn't resonating with him.
Yeah.
So and the whole, and obviously he didn't think too much of the Catholicism thing because, I'm one of only two kids.
Yeah. I see your point.
Yeah.
I had a college roommate who was Catholic, and
Hmm.
I would say quite devout. And
Hmm.
even there was a period in not college, it was post college. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah, I need to wake up. But but no, he was down in. He went and did some. I won't call it missionary work. It was with some religious group where he spent like a summer down in New Orleans. And then at one
Okay.
point he was like, "You want to come down and visit?" I'm like, yeah, I'll see what I can find." And he was like, "Well, you can stay here at the monastery." And I'm like, "Oh, that's sick. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to come.
I mean,
Yeah.
kind of cool, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah." So, I fly down there and I meet him, and the monastery was a brick building, like cinder block bricks. And and there was these like three older dudes that lived there, and one guy would wake up every morning and make coffee with chicory in it. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, they're just so my understanding of what that word meant had a different meaning in my head versus like the
Yeah.
actual definition.
Oh,
uh
yeah.
yeah, so we had plenty of but that roommate and we had plenty of discussions because I was
Hmm.
pretty evangelical Protestant,
Hmm.
at the time. So
Well,
we sharpened iron, iron sharpened iron, I
yeah,
guess.
and I think
So,
it's interesting too for me because one of the things that I know, like I kind of went around and around with was like originally I'm like, okay, I'm not digging the Catholic thing.
hmm,
I don't really buy into a lot of this stuff because again, I'm a fairly logical guy,
yeah,
even from a kid. Um, but like there's so much societal pressure put on you to
hmm,
like find something to believe in a
yeah,
spiritual way that like I became, what, the new agey word, right? I was a seeker. Um and
yeah,
and I tried on a bunch of different things,
yeah,
I went through I tried the Protestant thing that didn't sing to me. I looked into some of the Eastern religions. I flirted with Buddhism for a year or two
hmm,
as a teenager, and then realized that it was all magical thinking anyway. Um, the Buddhists seemed less weird.
okay.
I
Yeah,
guess.
that makes sense. Yeah,
But then all of a sudden, like as I got further and further into it, I realized like, okay, wait a minute, this is all based on still some kind of belief of some weirdness, some weird spiritual thing that doesn't exist.
hmm,
And finally, and then I was like, okay, I'm agnostic. I don't know what it is. And then I
right,
finally kind of went, no, I'm not agnostic. I just don't believe. I just
right,
don't think there's a thing.
yeah,
Um, and and even beyond that, actually, to some extent now, I really, much to the chagrin of some of my friends who are pastors and stuff, like I'm kind of anti-religion at this
hmm,
point. Like I just don't think it's positive.
yeah. We'll get in that here a little bit. Let
Sure.
me go back just a little bit
Yeah.
about your upbringing. So you said you didn't really think whenever you were, being raised Catholic. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm sure you have. You mentioned your dad. Were your mom and dad together at that time?
Yeah, they still are. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So, and what'd
Yeah.
your mom think about you and your
Oh,
dad?
she was horrified. She was utterly horrified. She's like,
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
but the funny part is that like it really had an impact on not so much their beliefs, I don't think, as their behavior.
Right.
Because like, so dad stopped going,
Mm-hmm.
and so mom and my sister would pack off to church, and dad and I would hang out at home and do whatever was going on, right?
Right.
Um, and then that only lasts. I don't think that lasted more than a year or two.
Hmm.
And then eventually, like mom and my sister stopped going. Um, and then my sister's been on a real weird journey, dude.
Yeah.
Just, my sister just started going to the the local Baptist church with one of my aunts.
Yeah, talk about frying pan into the fire. My goodness.
Right? Yeah.
I
And then,
was raised Baptist, so I
okay,
get it.
yeah. A Southern Baptist or Northern Baptist?
Southern Baptist.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. See, Northern Baptist is kind of,
Yeah.
Northern
Northern.
Baptist is much
Yeah.
lighter.
Yeah.
It's still Baptist, but it's not quite so intense.
Yeah. It's like I call
So,
Episcopalians diet Catholics,
yeah,
so Northern
same
Baptist, kind of the
idea.
same
Yeah,
thing.
we're Northern Baptists are kind of diet Southern Baptists.
Yeah.
But my sister did that for a bunch of years, and then like went to college, and then turned around. Like she lived with this family who was Catholic,
Mhm.
and then turned around and reconverted back to Catholicism.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay.
Well, it does make me wonder where this idea of belief comes from.
Mhm.
And you may have even heard the phrase where, like, you have a belief in the belief of God, right?
Mhm.
So it makes me wonder, like, is this evolutionary? Is there something that whenever we are just like, we don't have answers to certain questions, that we prescribe it to God, which is a common God of the gaps fallacy?
Right.
I don't know, you know?
I really believe that there's a couple pieces to it, right? And I think it starts with that evolutionary question, right? Which is we didn't know, like, obviously primitive man, right? Didn't know a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And when there was something they couldn't explain, they would ascribe it to some god or gods or spirits or nature or whatever they were worshiping at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, as society essentially developed, right? Like you had societies and governments and royalty and aristocracy and all that horseshit. That it became a methodology for the aristocracy to control the underclasses.
Yeah.
Right. And if you read, Hitchens does a great essay on this, that at least allures to a book called Why Heaven Hates Ham. And it has a lot to do with like the availability of farm products and the it's really well done, and I can't do it justice. But
I will have to check that out. That's just the
essentially,
title alone sounds fantastic.
Yeah, oh, right, so, yeah. It essentially illustrates how religion is co-opted or maybe even created to control as a methodology to control the underclasses and retain power.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to me if you look at how it's being utilized today.
Mm-hmm.
I started reading. I hadn't finished reading the book Jesus and John Wayne, which goes back talking about
that one. Who wrote that? That sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, I should get better at like figuring out how to quickly Google things.
That's all right.
Jesus and John Wayne by Joy. Can't say the last name.
Okay.
Because I'll mangle it. Oladokin, Joy Oladokin. Yeah.
If it gives it out, I can figure it out from there.
Yeah, so. It's a deep examination of the history of the religious right and like the moral majority, going really all the way back to like John Wayne and this idea of masculinity, and then tying that in with religion, and then like supergluing that on top of America, and then and now we get to where we're at now, where we're like, yeah, fuck the First Amendment, we'll just create an office of whatever, you know.
It's like the Office of Faith or some.
I don't know what it's called.
It's whatever it is. It doesn't make any sense.
Just an eye roll to me. Yeah.
But if you, I mean, and you can, I think you can layer that concept onto a lot of different periods in history, right? I mean, religion was used by the English to control the Irish, and then it kind of backfired. But there's just a lot of there are a lot of places in history where that's been, that's been conceptualized and realized over time,
Yeah.
and it never ends well. Right?
Yeah. Well,
You
it's like
know,
when it comes to the Catholic Church, I'm willing to grant that for all intents and purposes, it's the oldest denomination of Christianity. I'm
sure,
willing to grant that. I'm sure
I'll
there
give
was
them that
some
one.
early sects or whatever
Yeah.
whenever you first got started, and I'm starting to dive a little bit more into that. I don't know if you ever heard of Richard Carrier.
The name's familiar.
Yeah, he's this is what he studies is
Okay.
religion, Dr. Richard Carrier, and he's a
Okay.
mythicist, meaning that he doesn't even
Mhm.
believe that Jesus existed like at all.
It's funny that you
So
mentioned that,
yeah.
but neither do I.
Okay.
Because if you look, many, there's so little real evidence to start with,
Hmm.
and there's so many contradictions, and there's so many just very convenient things about that.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you think about the name Jesus Christ, it translates to Savior the Savior. Really? I'm just
that
saying.
that's my argument about the
Seems kind of
Bible.
convenient.
Yeah, like people say that the Bible, oh, it's just an amazing book, and I'm like, have you read this thing? Like,
I was going to
I
say, the vast
yeah.
majority of people who tell you that the Bible is an amazing book have not read it.
Yeah,
Um,
or not read it all the way through. Now growing
right.
up, I did read it all the way through,
Hmm.
and then as you get older, you kind of just stick like to the Sunday school stuff, which are
Right.
these are all good stories, and I'm not trying to take away from those
Yeah.
stories. I mean, the
It's a story.
story. Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's a
it's a story.
story.
It's a story.
I,
But one of the things that I did, one of these podcasts that I like to watch actually quite a bit,
mhm.
Deconstruction Zone.
Okay.
It's a guy. His name's just Deconstruction Zone
Mhm.
Justin, and he is a pretty excellent debater, and he invites
Okay.
people. He puts priority to theists, to come on and just say,
Hmm.
what's your best evidence
I think
for
I've seen
God?
clips on some of his. I think I've seen clips of some of his stuff.
Yeah, so he recently quit his job because now he's able to do this full time after
That's awesome.
doing some
Well,
videos, yeah, for like a few years.
wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be cool. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, yeah.
I know.
But we'll see. But he had mentioned because he also was grew up in the Catholic Church, went to
Hmm.
Catholic high school, I think, if I'm getting his history correct. And
Hmm.
so he would recommend some Bibles, and one of them was this Catholic Study Bible. He was like, "Listen," he's like, this Bible is the translation was done by biblical scholars that aren't really trying to push you one way or the other. They're just saying this is what it is translated to. So
Hmm.
I grabbed that book, which is large enough to work also as a camping stop under if you have to park your camper and you have to
Yeah. You got
yeah.
to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so because it also like 3/4 of the page is scripture and then the rest of it's notes, and
Oh
so
wow.
my
Okay.
daughter and I are reading this thing through start to finish. We're gonna get through it,
Okay.
but oh man, we finished Exodus last night, and I was just like, this is awful. I mean, if you're going like one chapter at a time
Hmm.
and you're looking at it critically,
Right.
it's
Oh, it's got to be brutal.
oh, it's so painful, but then at the same time so she is 16 now, and
Okay.
she both her and then my oldest daughter who's an adult, she came walking through and she's like, some things don't make sense. I'm like, yeah, and then she rattled off some things like, so these kids get it and I don't.
Oh.
And my journey to non-belief is fairly
Mhm.
new. It's only a year old at this
Okay.
point. So but I must something must be rubbing off on them to at least think about things, because they're like, these are
Oh, for
terrible
sure.
stories, Dad. And I'm like, yeah, they really are. I'm really
Well, it's
sorry.
funny because you talk about like your kids, because so I have a 22-year-old daughter,
Hmm.
um, and her mom and I have been apart for, oh God, quite a few years anyway,
Yeah.
since she was 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and she and I are very similar. Like we're very similar personalities. There are a lot of people who would tell you that talking to her is like talking to me, only she's taller and cuter. Um,
And 2 seconds slower, by the way.
and she's like, well, but but it's interesting because her mom and I split largely because we're diametrically opposite.
Yeah.
And her mom is like yourself, Southern Baptist and very much a believer and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and very conservative.
Yeah.
And I'm none of those things. Um, and and Annie was very young when kids started coming to me and going, I don't know, Dad. I'm not sure I get any. I like this. This doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm going to let you make your own decision, but doesn't make sense to me either, kid. So
Yeah, and that kind of goes into what you were talking about with. So I would say I am mostly pretty anti-theist as well,
yes,
because I don't. Because these ideas seep into society, they seep into our thoughts, they inhibit us from being able to look at any other possibility,
right, right,
because the belief is so strong, like the
right.
mind is so powerful, it takes in these, and once it takes root, it's very
hmm
hard to disconnect from that.
Absolutely.
uh
And I think the societal pressure thing that I was talking about before, the
yeah.
why, while I was pretty much not any sort of a believer when starting around age 8 or 9, like it took me really until like I graduated high school to come around to the idea that I didn't have to have some sort of belief system
Uh-huh.
that guided me.
Right.
That like,
You
you
could just
know,
don't be a dick and stuff and like do that
yeah,
kind of
like
stuff.
basic
Yeah.
morality kind of seemed pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I didn't need some dude in the sky, threatening me with eternal hell,
Uh-huh.
um, to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Let's dive into some of the other things that you explored. I mean, I'm
sure.
particularly interested in Buddhism because there was a time as I was deconstructing,
hmm
and I work with them, but like
Yeah.
we're in totally different fields, departments, whatever. And so,
hmm
we've gotten to be good friends, and he was kind of my buddy to tag along with me when I decided that maybe my alcohol usage was a little bit excessive, and he had already
hmm
been through that because for him it was either if you don't stop drinking you're going to die.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm a recovering alcoholic
okay,
myself. So
there we
I've
go.
been sober. I've been sober for about 13 years.
Oh,
So
congratulations, that's
thank
awesome.
you.
So but yeah, he was
Mhm.
he's spiritual, not religious, that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
doesn't believe in God, but he believes in like, well, you never know, right? And I'm like, okay.
Right.
So I guess
Okay.
that would be like
It's
classic
kind of an
agnostic.
agnostic,
Yeah.
classic agnostic. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, he's interested in reading about other things like Buddhism, for instance. I mean,
Sure.
he's like, yeah, I went over to that part of the world and it was pretty interesting and like how they
Mhm.
live and everything. So I don't know.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit more about that journey. Like, at least with Buddhism, like how did what drew you to that whenever you said, I'm going to poke around the edges?
So it was interesting to me just because, I mean, well, first, there's a couple things too, right? Let's be fully transparent. I was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was a massive punk.
Cool.
Like that was my life. I was
Yeah.
punk rock and motorcycles. That was my life.
Okay. Doesn't sound
And
bad to me, but go ahead.
No, it's pretty good actually. It hasn't
Yeah.
really changed that much actually.
Yeah.
And it's in 50. I'm 55 now, and my
Mhm.
life is punk rock and motorcycles. Um, but so the initial attraction was just that it was something that nobody else was doing. Right? It's different,
Yeah.
and I was
Rebellious.
always seeking out that difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is this thing? Um, and some of the concepts rang true, right? Like, they and unfortunately, it's been 35 years, so I can't tell you that I can't tell you what those were. But the a lot of it seemed to make a lot of sense to me um, until I got to this place where I started to seriously look at practicing
Mm-hmm.
and discovered this kind of weird subjugation that Buddhists go through,
Oh.
right? They always have, like, they have a leader, a lama, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They have this leader to whom they subjugate themselves, and that is their spiritual teacher and all that stuff. I'm like, And I was looking at that and realized it's just another power structure.
It's true.
And, they're still praying to something. There's still some sort of theist perspective there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, there's a whole bunch of magical thinking and some whack power structures. And that kind of made me go, I don't think so.
I mean, the good thing is they're not going door to door.
No, truth. Dude, I mean, oh my God. The freaking missionaries, man.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and you may not have had this experience, but certainly I did. Because I grew up in a very small town in Maine.
I'm a small town person as well, yeah.
Okay. And my extended family mostly lived in like a maybe 2-mile area. And there was basically like this phone tree.
What was that?
There was a phone tree.
The phone tree. Yes, the original social network.
Like whoever got hit with the missionaries first would call everybody else and say, "Don't answer the door."
That's funny.
The Jehovah's, the Mormons, the whomevers were proselytizing at that time.
Yeah.
And they come to the door and knock. But of course, it also makes me think of a joke I read about. I heard recently about that. It's a Mormon missionary comes to the door, guy invites him in, says, "Hey, come on, sit down, come have a drink with me and we'll talk." And he says, "So what do you want to talk about?" And the missionary looks at him and says, "I don't know, I've never gotten this far before." So
that's good.
But it was this, like I said, it was the phone tree of missionaries. Yeah. Don't tell it, don't let them know. And for many years prior to because the anti-theism for me has probably been in the last decade. Okay. I was very happily, up until a point, I was very happily, I don't believe anything or in anything in that regard. What you believe is up to you. Just keep it yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And then after a while, I got to be like, no, to your point, right? It seeps into every aspect of our lives and society. And I don't ever see anything positive.
Yeah. I'll probably mention this so many times because it happens so many times, and I mean over the course of the future podcast, but my daughter works in retail, the oldest one works in retail, and she'll have people slip her some tracks or something, and then the other night she comes home and she's like, there was a guy came through and the transaction was done, and then she said he just kind of leaned in and whispered, "Jesus loves you."
Yeah.
I'm like, what? He whispered Jesus loves you to you on his way out? And she's like, yeah. And then I'm like, why? What a terrible, terrible marketing, but very bad. Wait, I want to know more. Come back.
I'm a 30 plus year marketing pro.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm like, no, this is dumb. You're doing it wrong. So.
Yeah, but at the same time, she's at work, man. Like,
right?
Well,
the one that just straight up pisses me off is so my daughter, in addition to her research work, has a side job as a server in a restaurant.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know where this is going.
You've seen it, right?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The fake 20 or 100 or whatever stuck under the glass, and you open it up and it's a friggin' tract. Yeah. I'm like, I just, you kind of want to look at it and go, if your religion of choice was so great, why do you have to trick people?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, why wouldn't it be authentic? Tell them this thing is a thing. Like this is the wonder of what I'm experiencing.
Well, it's like punk rock and motorcycles, right? Like once you heard punk rock, you were like, "Man, what is this? I got to hear more about it."
After I rode a motorcycle for the first time, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, know that."
I used to ride. It's been a while. But probably about a decade at this point, but just a street motorcycle.
Walking. I mean, I've been riding on the street since 1985. I started racing in 1989. I was hooked.
And once you do it, it's fun.
And then you fool me into it. right?
Yeah,
I
you
saw
didn't
the
need,
bike. I went, hey, that's cool. I wrote it. It was great. I
yeah,
didn't have to be tricked. I didn't have to be convinced. I didn't have to subjugate myself to somebody. I'm like,
no,
hey, all
it
right, this is
was
all right.
right. Yeah, I know.
The only subjugation involved was, I had to go work for somebody so I could afford gas.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, I
Well,
can do
that's how it
that.
goes. While we were talking, I did a quick Google search on the Buddhist beliefs, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how we didn't talk about probably one of the more interesting ones. I think
Mm-hmm.
about suffering, focusing around suffering, about how life is suffering, and suffering comes from craving. So if you
Mm-hmm.
stamp that down, then you'll have
Right.
maybe, I don't know. Is the
It's
thought you'd
interesting
have
you'd say
less
that because
suffering?
the craving thing, I think, was one of the things that um, kind of attracted to me to it at first, right? Because you
Yeah.
can kind of see that connection
Uh-huh.
between want and suffering, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you want something or you have desire for something that you can't have necessarily, right?
Right.
And that does create some level of suffering. It's probably not, the level of the Buddhists want you to think it is, but it's a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And that connection to me made sense. And the idea of kind of stamping out craving, you know what? Like, all right, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but it just, yeah. But like I said, over time, the magical thinking and the subjugation portion of that just didn't kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't follow, if you
Right.
will, right?
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
seemed, and I think that's the thing that where I missed initially. Like when I first got into it, I was like, this is a philosophy
Right.
rather than
Than a
a
religion.
spiritual,
Yeah.
right, than a religion. And from a philosophical perspective, it was kind of interesting,
Yeah.
and some
It
of
is
it made
interesting.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, and then once it started getting into prayer and subjugation, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
not for me.
Well,
I'm
it's funny.
done.
Even the Bible mentions meditation, and
Sure.
and I know meditations has become meditation in the
Hmm.
in Buddhism is a thing, and then has
Yeah.
become more popular in the last 10 or 15 years as
Hmm.
society tries to find some way to quiet our brains in a very
Sure.
noisier and noisier world.
Sure.
Sorry for adding to that by adding a podcast.
That's okay.
But
We're all going to do
but
it eventually,
you know,
right?
yeah.
But,
So, but these are good things, and that's where I think that pulling ideas from religions rather than full on beliefs,
right.
magical thinking, is not a bad way to go, really.
No, I
Because
don't, because some of it, some of the pieces that aren't designed to subjugate people and create these power structures
uh
um, make sense.
yeah,
Like I'm more, like I think a lot of the Eastern religion stuff. There's probably, there's in many of the practices, there might be a kernel of truth.
hmm
In some of the Christian traditions that involve silence, because that's a contemplative practice, right? And I
right,
think that's what the meditation thing. I was trying to remember. So I read a blog post about this maybe a decade ago about contemplative practice,
hmm
um, and I actually, I do believe that contemplative practice can help you because it does clear away the noise and it provides you um, it has the potential to provide you with some clarity because you're thinking you're very focused or you're not focused, right? So
yeah,
it wipes things out. um, but one thing that's kind of Mirabai Bush wrote an article about contemplative practice, and there's a um, great graphic that came out of that article called the tree of contemplative practice. And if you look at that tree, meditation is but one piece, right? And
hmm
but it includes things like making music
oh
by yourself,
yeah,
or anything where you are hyper focused on one thing to the exclusion of all others.
that makes
Um,
sense. Yeah,
and actually, because in that blog post, I write about the fact that like riding a motorcycle at high speed is a contemplative practice for me
Yeah.
because particularly like, so if I have this machine underneath me, and whether on the road or the racetrack, frankly, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I am focused on going down the road as fast as I can, right? That, and still surviving.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a key part.
that requires an extraordinary level of focus to the exclusion of all other things. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I'm taking a corner and trying to figure out if I'm going to make it or not, and I'm thinking about making my grocery list, I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
I, so,
Yeah.
and of course, that's an extreme example. Um, but the thing that I really enjoyed about that article in particular is that it separates the concept of contemplative practice from spirituality,
Yeah.
right?
Right. I love
And
that. Yeah.
and it makes it real in the moment for people who don't, because what you're doing is contemplating the things around you,
Uh-huh.
not necessarily to the inclusion of some sort of spirit, if you will,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
That is
So,
interesting. Have you ever heard of 75 Hard? You know what that
yes,
is?
I
Okay.
sure do. Yeah, I
So
have a ton of friends who've done it.
yeah,
So,
I did 75 Hard 2 years ago.
okay.
And at the end of it, my wife was thrilled because she said, "Good, you've been gone for 75 days." Because I was so focused
Right.
on that thing because
Sure.
I mean, yes, it's arbitrary. It means nothing. There's no medals at the end of it or
No.
anything like that. I did buy a T-shirt from the company that,
Okay.
kind of like promotes it. That's cool.
Sure.
Um, but it was such a focused endeavor because
Right.
you had to drink like, I can't remember. I want to say like
It's
a
a
gallon of
ton
water
of
a day.
water.
Yeah.
Work out a couple times a day, and one of them's
Yeah.
going to be
One of them's
outside.
got to be outside,
And
45 minutes each time, but one of
yeah,
them has to be outside. And so I would have to time my day. I would have to be
right.
really, really
And
disciplined. And
intentional. Yeah.
yes, and intentional, because if I waited too late in the day to consume all my water, well, guess what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be doing all night long?
You're going to be sitting up and paying.
Yeah,
Go to
yeah,
this. My friend.
right,
I get it.
right.
Yep.
And then after that, it's going to screw up the next day, and I'll be working extra hard to just catch up and get it back to where it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could just choose to quit, but I didn't want to quit.
Right.
I had tried 2 other times before, and then I never got to
Okay.
that. And the third time I did it. But if anything, it taught me that discipline is far more important than motivation, because motivation,
Yes.
you just kind of like wait for it to show up and be like,
Right.
well, I just need to get motivated. Like, well,
Right.
no.
Motivation is the starter. Discipline is the execution.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. So, and keep showing up.
I'm a big gym rat.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point was training as a competitive bodybuilder.
Oh, cool.
And and the thing they always is, and one of the motivational things in bodybuilding are hysterical, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is suffer the pain of discipline or suffer the pain of regret.
Regret, yes, yeah.
And and I actually thought about having that tattooed on me somewhere at one point, but it's that whole idea, motivation is one thing. Motivation is how you start.
Yes.
Motivation is not going to get you through.
No, it is not.
Right?
No. Yeah. And I'm with you, by the way. I have a gym on the other side of that wall.
Okay.
With the squat rack and
Nice.
and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm a commercial gym goer myself. I probably have the space for a gym here, but I kind of like the idea. But I also work from home, and I kind of like the idea of leaving the house at least once a day.
Yeah, no, I get that. And during the pandemic, it made sense because I was spending a lot of time here, and I mean, going on Facebook Marketplace, and people were selling their gym stuff that they thought they were going to do something during the pandemic.
Sure.
And then they didn't do it after things opened up. And I'm like, oh no, I totally want that, because I would go to the gym and then I would be like, man, I can't, I'm waiting forever for a squat rack, and
right.
or something like that. And
and it sucked. I mean, because there's a couple pieces of equipment. Like God, yesterday I was doing something, and I ended up waiting for, and it really killed me because I was like, I had superset all this stuff in order to kind of get the workout done.
Right.
And then I end up standing there waiting for the last piece of equipment and eating up all the time that I had just saved.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
I
like,
mean, it's just like you just delayed it, you delayed
yeah,
that rest time till later.
yeah,
But the good thing about a gym, you do get out of the house.
yeah,
I do kind of
yeah,
miss that. And every once in a while, I still
sure.
go and pay like a day fee
Yeah.
just to do
uh,
something.
Right. Well, the
Um,
other thing too for me was the pandemic was a little. My experience of the pandemic was a little different than most people,
mhm. Did you work
because
from home?
yeah, I had been
Yeah.
a remote executive for a decade prior to that.
Hmm.
So like when everybody's freaking out about working from home,
Right.
I'm like, yeah, it's Tuesday. Okay, what's going on? There's nothing different here.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah,
you know,
that's
it,
how it feels for us. We homeschool, so
oh,
yeah, we're just like,
get
well,
it.
the hardest part was remembering what day it was,
Oh
because now
yeah.
Dad was home too.
Right, right. Well, that was the thing for me because at one point, for about 6 years, me and and my girlfriend at the time who lived with me, um, we both were work from home folks. Like,
Mhm.
I was a remote executive and she owned a company.
Yeah.
Um, so like we were both there all the time.
Hmm.
Um, and it was kind of wild. I mean, and like so, like I said, when the pandemic hit, we're like, yeah, okay, so what?
Hmm. Yeah.
It sucks. A lot of people are dying, and that's not great.
Yeah.
But
That was definitely not great.
it was not it was like from a personal perspective, it was fairly low impact, at least for my work life.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'd been kind of yelling that people should be remote for a while before then, but always working at
Mhm.
places that didn't, they needed a butt in a seat somewhere or else they felt
Oh yeah.
uncomfortable. And then whenever it happened, I was like, oh, thank goodness, just
Yeah, I have.
finally.
Well, it's funny because I have people on my team now who, because I work for a company that is almost completely virtual,
Hmm.
um, and I have people on my team now who are like, it'd be really cool if we had an office to go to every so often.
Yeah.
Like not every day,
Just
but
every so
like
often. Yeah.
just to show up and maybe interact with some of your colleagues once in a while. And I was like, yeah, you can do that. I have
Yeah.
no interest in that at
I
all.
mean, there is some value in it, but I also find that whenever you get into an office, that there's a lot of distraction that also comes with it that
Sure.
I don't personally have at home. I mean,
Well, exactly, right? I mean, I have, I'm actually sitting in my home office right now.
mhm. Yeah,
Um,
same. I mean, I
and
need to
it's
finish the walls, but whatever.
right. And it's
Yeah.
kind of, there's nothing here to distract me. I get hungry, I run to the kitchen and grab something. There's a restroom immediately behind me. So
Hmm.
it's like, and, the only thing that might disturb me is my dog.
Yeah.
And he's old, so he's pretty quiet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, he's asleep about 2 feet over that direction. So,
Yeah. I'll try to be quiet. No.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't wake the hound, man. So,
Yeah. So, so whenever it comes to, since you and I are similar
Mhm.
in our disdain for religion, like how does it make you feel about just your day to day? Like, are you frustrated? Are
I can
you,
be frustrated.
yeah.
Let's, first thing is, the use of religion by the current administration for the social changes they're trying to create sucks.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
just does.
Yeah.
Straight up, it sucks.
Hmm.
The other thing is I live in Atlanta.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I'm in the South,
Yes.
and and I will run across people. Have a blessed day. Go fuck yourself. Sorry. Um, you know, Somebody, there is funny about your daughter and the whole Jesus loves you thing because somebody looked at me and said, Jesus love you. And I just immediately, no filter, just looked at them and said, yeah, and everybody else thinks you're an asshole. Um,
I
because,
think I
and
saw that
that,
on a bumper sticker once. Maybe,
yeah, well, that was the thing is
yeah,
like, I had
yeah,
seen that 100 times and I was
yeah.
just like,
And in your mind got to use it like that one
and
time.
yeah,
You're
all
like,
of a
I
sudden,
could
like,
be,
here we go, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But in the day to day, right? It's this, because I'm I struggle here in the South with quite a few things.
Hmm.
One, I am a very, very lefty liberal. Like
Okay.
I am really, really left.
Yeah.
I'm not a Second Amendment guy. I'm an atheist. I'm an anti-theist, basically.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm in the South.
Right.
I'm in the
Yeah.
northern, and I'm in the northern suburbs of Atlanta on the west side of Georgia. The next district to the west of me is Marjorie Taylor Greene's district,
Oh,
if that tells you how
yeah.
conservative it is
Yeah.
around me.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind, some of the things that these folks believe. And while I try to, of course, I realize that I have to get along in society with the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
Every so often, it just makes me want to lose my shit, right?
Yeah. You
And
know,
I come out with something that Jesus loves you, yeah, and everybody else thinks you're an asshole, and it just and it doesn't even. I don't even consider it, but even stupid stuff, because like I've been in this position for so long, right? Like you're saying, you're obviously studied in it, but it's been a short term for you,
yeah.
right? Where for me, like I've been here for so long that I start to notice, I notice every little tiny freaking thing,
Like,
like
give me
somebody's.
yeah.
Well, here's a real easy one. OMG.
OMG. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Oh my God. Yeah.
No, it's oh my goodness. So that
Yeah,
way I
sure.
don't
Okay.
take the
Yeah.
name.
You don't want to take the Lord's name in vain. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's just the shit drives me nuts.
It's all right, but I've also known people that's too much because you're kind of like dancing around it a
You're
little
dancing
too
in the
much.
circle. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So
it's funny. I once worked, one of my former bosses was a Jehovah's Witness.
mhm.
Well, if you can only imagine, as I mentioned to you before, I swear like a sailor.
Fuck
And the
yeah.
Jehovah's are not into that at all.
Yeah.
Believe me, it was a point of contention between the two of us quite frequently.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the, but in so many ways, like I see religiosity impacting our society negatively, and it's like, it's silly things like OMG,
Yeah.
but it's also how we choose to police women's bodies,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because most of that is driven by religion,
Yeah.
or how religion is used today. The whole abortion debate is a religious debate.
Yeah.
If you look at the science of it, if you take all the religiosity out of it, it's a scientific problem, right? And it doesn't make any sense.
And I'm willing to have a discussion about
Sure.
when does life begin? Like that's
Absolutely.
a pretty good question. I mean, honestly,
of course,
if you're the more traditional viewpoint of when did life begin, was when first breath occurred. That's the
right.
more traditional religious viewpoint, and then it
Sure.
morphed. Going back to that book about Jesus and John Wayne,
Yeah.
it morphed into more of a like, oh, we can latch onto this and do something with it.
Right. And,
More for
there's
control.
that concept of viability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem and there's a lot of problems with viability. One is it's nobody's fucking business.
There is that. Yeah.
But the other thing is like, there's not a real, there's it's a relatively accepted medical standard for that. But there's also, people who think of it differently. And medical science changes that concept constantly.
Yeah.
And, and right now a 20-week fetus conceivably is viable. Now,
with the right technology and
technology and people and endless rounds of surgery and
Sure.
and
yeah,
and there's no consideration that presuming this fetus lives to be a human, there's no consideration of quality of life, right? Like, because there's, I've read a fair bit about this, and one of the things that has struck me is because they'll talk about like a 20-week. Well, one of the things that hasn't happened with a 20-week-old fetus is they don't erect them.
Oh shit!
And they have to have one constructed because their digestive tract doesn't exist, essentially, right? Fully exist, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and of course, because they are still within the womb, excretion is not a great thing
Mm-hmm.
in mom's, inside a mom.
No.
So it doesn't form until much later.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're talking about surgery to build this fetus a digestive tract, essentially,
Yeah.
which is highly invasive and not always successful,
and not natural either.
And not natural.
If by a group of people that tend to go into like, well, that's not natural. That's definitely not natural.
When you're praying God. Okay, so let's take the obverse of that.
Yeah.
I'm building a butthole for this kid. You don't think I'm playing God in that regards either?
Oh man, yes, yeah.
How are you?
It's very interesting. Yeah, to think about
medical science in general, like at every stage of its evolution, is to some extent playing God, right? So where do you draw that line? It's okay to it's okay to like build a digestive tract.
Yeah.
But it's not okay to abort a fetus.
Right. Or something that I think about a lot now as I get a little older, and I have to carry 2 sets of glasses with me because I don't like the progressive lenses. So I have the readers, and like I can see my computer just fine.
I have progressive contacts in, so I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, I hated it. I tried it, and I was like driving, and my head kept like bobbing like one of those little things on the dashboard, because I couldn't find the right spot to even see.
Like, where am I supposed to be looking?
Yeah. So, but obviously there was a period in time where people just kind of walked around blurry, huh? Right. I mean, they was just like, oh, I can't see anymore. Not well. Can you tell me what that says? And then we mankind humans, we
created
said, well,
this thing.
This problem sucks. Let's try to find a solution. And then somebody said, well, what, we figured out magnification somehow. And we said, let's start there.
Right. And there's this sort of, so, that, right. So like those people, the people with vision impairment probably didn't live as long back then.
No, probably not.
So we're playing God, right?
Yeah.
We're keeping people alive by letting them see.
Yeah.
I don't see too many people complaining about contacts glasses.
Well, this sounds like the perfect like anti-theist protest though, where you would go, you would set up, you'd get some people like us, and we'd set up on a street corner, and we'd say like, stop playing God, no more glasses,
I put like one of those like the Lions Club donation boxes, right? Put your glasses in here.
Yeah, put your glasses here. Repent and go back to blindness.
Repent and go back to nature. And get hit by a car across the street.
You get hit just as soon as you dropped off your glasses, and then
right?
This was God's will.
Was God. It was.
So.
I don't know. I'm sure I come across sarcastic as hell, but.
Yeah, I love it. So keep going.
Okay, good. Because, but the thing is, like, I think most of theist beliefs are so patently ridiculous that they make me sarcastic. Because I'm like, how can you go down this place? Like, there's no. And like, as somebody who has read the entire Bible, as you've mentioned, like, you understand that it's internally inconsistent.
Yeah.
So if you're going to base a belief system on this thing, which pieces do you choose?
Well, even whenever it's inconsistent, and you're still pretty deeply in the faith, as I was, and you would do the mental gymnastics to justify things. You would come up with because it's often said that believers, they come with the conclusion in hand. The conclusion is that God exists, and I'm finding a path, and then whatever the path is, that usually is dictated by geography. Like, oh, we're in America, we're predominantly some version of Christianity, so that's going to be what we gravitate to whenever we go along with once we accept the conclusion.
Sure.
It's like I was yelling at somebody. Yelling is a fierce word, but I typed something to somebody the other day who said, well, I just became a Christian and I'd like to start reading the Bible. And I said, why would you believe in something before you've read that? That doesn't make
signing a contract without reading it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't.
I'm gonna go like buy a house without actually reading my mortgage papers.
Right. Yeah, that would not be good.
Like, I don't know what I'm getting into, but hey, let's go into it full bore.
I mean, realistically, it's very similar to how our leadership, how they pass bills, right? They vote on bills that they don't read.
I've never read.
Yeah, never read. I mean, if they're lucky, they're probably just feeding them into Chat GPT at this point and say, please give me a 10-point summary.
Give me a 10-minute summary of what this hell says. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if it's
not
that's
a great
the
way
case,
to run a government.
Maybe you guys should learn to edit. That's all I got to say.
Well, that's it. Because you read about these bills. This bill was 672 pages long, and we were given like 12 minutes to read it.
Right. Yeah, that's not how this should work.
I'm like, that's not how this should work.
Yeah. Yeah, and the same with Christianity. I mean, or any religious belief. It's like you should probably investigate a little bit more. I would understand somebody more if they investigated it and then they said, well, after I read the things, then I felt like it made some sense.
Man, like you read the book, you kind of go, yeah, I'm into that. That makes all the sense in the world to me. And go to town.
Yeah.
Right. But do your freaking homework, man.
Right. I mean, but many people come to faith for different reasons. Sometimes they have personal revelation, whatever that means. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And people
what they call that in my world is psychosis.
Psychosis. Yes. Yeah.
But anyway.
But there are also plenty of people that come whenever they I used to be in a band, and the drummer had to go to prison for a little while because he got in a fight.
That's what drummers do, isn't it?
Yeah. I know. Be a bass player. You'll never be in trouble.
Bass players don't do anything. Drummers? Yeah, drummers are frontman, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And so, and then he came out pretty religious because that's pretty common. Like, I'm in a bad spot in life, and I turn to religion, and or let's say you're an alcoholic, right? That happens. I know that happens because AA is really successful, and it's also really religious. So yeah.
Okay, can I mean, you hit a nerve.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
good.
Again, I am a recovering alcoholic.
Right. And I was going to ask you if that played in any way, shape, or form.
So AA, like, and everybody, when I decided to quit, of course, everybody's like, oh, AA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was popular. So
it was popular. I mean, it still is popular.
Yeah.
And I actually, it's funny because we're talking about reading the documentation, right? I read up on it a little bit. Because I'm like, I'm not just going to go into this meeting not knowing anything, And of course, then I got to find somebody to sponsor me anyway and all that horseshit. And the idea that, like, somebody needs to tell me that I'm good enough to quit drinking is kind of bullshit. So I read some stuff about it.
Yeah.
And one thing is that while certainly there are success stories from AA, it is wildly unsuccessful statistically.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, God, yeah. It's something like, if I remember right, it's like 88% of people who go through AA and get sober, like, go back to doing drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
It's hugely unsuccessful. It's just really well marketed. The other side of that is, like, is I have friends who tried it and then bailed out and went to something that's evidence-based. And we're like, oh, God, yeah, I mean, AA is church. It is church.
Yeah.
Let go and let God. Yeah, okay, so now what, right? I don't believe in half of that. What do I do now?
Yeah.
So because there are other options, and they are evidence-based and based in psychology and psychiatry, and there's some drug assistance, and there's all kinds of shit you can do that actually is statistically more successful and doesn't require you to have a Christian belief system.
Right. Yeah.
To me, that makes a lot more sense. Now, the
Well,
problem is with those things is they're not very well marketed,
not
right?
well marketed and maybe not as available. Is that possible? I don't know.
I
In the age of
don't
the
know
internet, though.
because, like, I
Yeah.
found a good friend of mine really was very, 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 very deeply alcoholic and very
Yeah.
struggling very hard with his addiction,
Hmm.
to the point that he was starting to get into other drugs, like heroin.
Yeah.
Um, but like me, he was an atheist, and he's like, I tried AA. He's like, I don't buy into it because like you said, because the first thing that could let go and let God. And like, well, I got that half. So what do I do now? Um, and he found, and so I actually went and did a little research for him and found this CBT program that
Yeah.
could be administered, that was administered for free
Wow.
by social workers.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it made a ton of sense. It has it has a book that's maybe about as thick as your phone.
Uh-huh.
8.5 by 11 book about as thick as your phone. You read through the book, you do the techniques, you check in with like I said, usually a social worker or
Uh-huh.
somebody like that. And if you do it, like, you're retraining your brain to understand the impacts of what you're doing to yourself.
Yeah. Do you have the name? I mean, I'd love to
I
include it.
don't, because
Okay.
it's been a minute.
Okay.
But like, cognitive behavioral therapy has a lot of because here's the thing is, AA focuses on the interpersonal relationships and the emotional side of it and all that horseshit.
Which I mean, community's good, relationships are
Community's
good.
great. I mean,
It's
don't
all
get me
great.
wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm all about having community. Like, if you actually ask me about why I race, it has more to do with people than it does with motorcycles.
Right.
But that's a different thing.
Uh-huh.
However, I went totally sideways on that. I lost my
Oh,
train of
we were talking about CBT and
CBT
using
and
that just as modifying behavior rather
yeah,
than going on really.
thank you. Thank you. You
Yeah.
brought me back to where I wanted to be. At the end of the day, certainly you want to change things about yourself that are largely caused by your alcoholism, but the basis of that is changing behavior.
Yeah.
Right? What is the behavior? Do not drink alcohol.
Yes.
Change that behavior, and much of the rest of this will kind of sort itself out, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And cognitive behavior therapy is designed to change behavior, right? It's not an emotional treatment. It's a methodology by which you change the behavior. Now, once you've changed the behavior, you probably still have some emotional work to do.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah,
some
sure.
mental health work to do.
Yeah.
But you've at least changed the behavior.
Yeah. You've stopped the thing that's causing all the other dominoes to fall. You're just saying, let me just stop that so that way I can take it one domino at a time rather than
this behavior.
Yeah.
Do not do this thing and then say, okay, now I don't do that thing anymore. Now let's look at things like, why did I choose to drink in the first place?
Right.
Or what relationships do I need to repair because I was drinking? Or, but it's probably a lot easier to deal with that stuff if you're not actually drinking.
Yeah. Well, there's I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Actually.
It just reminded me of this book that I've read called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And where they talk at the very beginning of the book about how that they looked at this one woman who quit smoking.
Yep.
But when she quit smoking, other things happened. Like eventually she lost weight and like changed other aspects of her life. And it's because you stopped that one thing, right? And like the once you created the new habit, then you found other ways to also include new habits that are healthy rather than new habits that are destructive.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't really start seriously lifting weights and being in the gym until I quit drinking.
Yeah.
I'd always been kind of going because I was a college athlete and I didn't want to lose all of that.
Yeah.
But like, I really seriously got into it after I stopped drinking. Why? Because, well, one, I mean, there is such a thing as an addictive personality, right? I mean, and you're replacing one addiction with another to some extent. But like, honestly, I don't think I care.
Hmm.
Because what I've replaced it with is something that is positive, right? I'm
Yeah.
in good health, I'm fit, I'm strong. Um, I like to think I look pretty good. Um, and
I'm not here
and
to
that
judge. This is an audio show. No.
That's fine. That's why I can say that, because nobody can see me, right?
Fantastic.
Amazingly beautiful.
I have a face for radio, so it's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, actually. So, but the whole point is like, I changed a behavior
Hmm.
and then replaced it with another behavior that was more positive.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to it's probably easier to deal with the mental health and emotional challenges that have been created by your drinking when you're not drinking, or
Yes.
you're not doing drugs, or you're not doing whatever the thing is that you probably shouldn't be doing because it's not healthy,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
and one of the things, since I was raised religious,
Mhm.
and then you believe in things like creation. I'm so sorry.
I am so
Um,
sorry. I'm
uh,
sorry for you. I'm going to
yeah.
apologize
Well, I mean,
for you.
I'm making up for lost time now. I'm
You're doing great,
relearning
Gene.
things. But then once you learn, like, there's shame that comes with
Oh yeah,
addiction. This
sure.
shame, like, oh, what you terrible fucking bastard! That how could you drink? And well, it is in the book This Naked Mind, which is
Hmm.
a book about stopping drinking.
Yeah.
She talks about like, well, don't feel too bad for getting addicted to a substance that is addictive.
Well, and not
I
only
mean,
that, it's addictive and it's legal.
yeah,
So,
and
and
everywhere, absolutely
well,
everywhere.
it's funny
Yeah,
because I'll tell you, one of the first things that I noticed when I quit was how prevalent it was in everything we do,
everything,
right? I
everything.
mean, from simply like going out to dinner, right? You can have a glass of wine, you can have a beer.
Hmm.
To how we socialize, you go to a bar.
Yeah.
You go to a sporting event, and what are they serving? And you're gonna have a beer in the stands.
Hmm.
Um, you do almost anything, and drinking is involved.
Yeah.
Like because at the time, not long after I quit, I was a remote executive for a crisis management company out of Minneapolis, and I was on the road a lot,
Hmm.
at conferences and that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I know those. Those are fun.
and right, and when you go to the conference social events, and what is
Yeah.
everybody doing? They're walking around, they're walking around shooting the breeze and getting wasted.
Yeah.
Um,
It's open bar.
Open
So.
bar.
Hmm.
And it was really funny because after the first couple times of doing that and having to explain almost endlessly that I don't drink alcohol,
Hmm.
was I came up with a strategy, which was I would get to an event about 30 minutes ahead of schedule and introduce myself to the bartenders. And I would tell them, and I would say, look, I'm going to order a gin and tonic, and you're going to give me a tonic water with lime, and I'm going to tip you handsomely.
I love it. Yeah. You're paying for the joy of not having to be asked and having to answer that question
A
that I
hundred
don't
times in
drink
a
because
right.
of yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I would go to the bar, I'd order a gin and tonic, they'd hand me a tonic water with lime, I'd slip them a 10, and I'd do
Hmm.
this. The thing is, like, I do this like 5 times, 5 times a night, so
Yeah.
they're making $50.
Yeah.
And, and then nobody asked me any questions. And I've
Yeah.
got something that looks like an alcoholic beverage in my hand because it's got a lime and a sword and all the whole shit.
Yeah.
Right. Um, but it's wild to me that I had to go through that.
Yeah, it is wild. And, it's also the same thing whenever you go to a restaurant and the first
Mhm.
thing they ask you is, well, what are we having to drink? Depending on the restaurant, it may be alcoholic or maybe they just mean, are you thirsty for something
Right.
besides water?
Well, I mean,
Uh, but usually they get, I mean, you got the drink menus on the table.
oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
well,
what?
and the thing is of course they want you to drink
Hmm.
because the margins on booze are
Oh,
are
huge.
better,
Yeah.
and the server wants you to drink because it
Yeah.
increases your tip average. So that if you're tipping on percentage, she's going to get a higher tip, or he,
Yeah.
right? So there's all this pressure to do the thing or to get other people to do the thing,
Hmm.
um, and it's literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, I will never forget. And you know, and people are, oh, that's just in America. I'm like, no, 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 no. Not even close. In fact, some
Yeah.
cultures, like if you go into some of the Nordic countries, it's worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, yeah. I mean, there's this thing. I used to have a bunch of staff in Stockholm, Sweden, when I was with a marketing company, excuse me, a staffing company, and the Swedes would drink these little tiny shots for breakfast. They were red and painful. And they were only like an ounce. They weren't even like a full shot.
Yeah.
And they called them Danish breakfast shots.
Well, okay, sure. Yeah.
And they would drink this shit for breakfast
Uh-huh.
with the eggs in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, y'all are all, you know, it's kind of the whole, you know, like marijuana users talk about, you know, wake and bake. It's the same idea. And it was just, it blew my friggin' mind. But anyway,
Right. Yeah.
but this isn't really about that. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of is, because you're still trying to change how you feel, or
sure.
you know, you're thinking differently.
You're
You know,
changing
right?
behavior.
All
right?
of this stuff, yeah. Whenever you change behavior, you are asking the question, "What the fuck do I got to do to stop this? Because it's ruining my life."
Right.
You know.
Or ultimately, what do I have to do to start this and make it stick?
Yeah, that's
right?
true. And
You know,
I
because
think,
like the any of us who are like commercial gym rats, right? Who like go to a commercial gym, know that every year from like around January 1 to about mid-February, the gym is going to be not all crowded,
yeah.
and then they'll start to trickle off.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a few that stay, but the vast majority of them you'll never see again.
Right.
Why? Because they haven't figured out. We were talking about motivation versus discipline.
Mm-hmm.
They have the motivation to join the gym and spend the money and die.
Absolutely.
They don't have the discipline to keep doing the thing.
Yeah.
That they say they want to get the result they want to get.
Yeah.
And that's a big piece of behavioral change.
It's a huge piece, and the discipline comes from also identifying, like really thinking about what are some things that are going to trip me up. Kind of like what I was talking about with 75 Hard in the water. Like I knew that the water was going to trip me up if I didn't learn to mitigate that, and so I bought a water bottle that fit perfectly.
With the numbers on the side?
No, I didn't have the numbers. It's a clean canteen one. But the reason why I like it is that 2 of those satisfied my requirement for the day, and it happened to also fit just perfectly in my refrigerator water dispenser. So that worked out well with me.
Yeah.
And for the record, it's actually a pretty kick-ass water bottle. Like I'm not really a big fan of water bottles just because they're so prevalent, and I think one's better. No, not one's really better than the other one. This one actually, I think it might be, but it helped in the discipline, because that was a thing that I didn't really have to think about anymore once I thought about it. You know, I worked my way through it. I'm like, okay, this is what I need, and this will help me be successful.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that, because it kind of reminds me when I quit smoking, because I was a smoker as a much younger man, and it was really funny because I woke up one morning and realized, and I actually used to keep a carton of cigarettes on a shelf over my head.
Break in case of emergency.
No, because that's how I started my day.
Oh, really?
I would reach up, grab a pack, stick a butt in my mouth, and light it before my head was off the pillow.
Yeah.
And I did that one morning, and I was like, this has utter control over me.
Yeah.
And I realized that the only way I was going to be able to quit was, the first thing I needed to do was get all the cigarettes in the house out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through the entire house, and it was the entire house. It was a studio apartment in New York City. So it was like 400 square feet.
Yeah.
But I went through the whole apartment. I grabbed every cigarette I could find, my emergency pack, the whole thing. And I walked out in the front of my building, and I handed them to the homeless guy who lived out front. And I said, here, do whatever you want with these, figuring he either smoke them or trade them for drugs. And I didn't care. But that meant that, when I was craving a cigarette about 10 minutes later, I had no options.
Right.
Because it was too much of a pain in the ass. I knew that, part of the thing was just convenience.
Yeah.
Right. If I made it inconvenient for me to smoke, I wouldn't smoke.
Yeah.
Now, I was also mean as a snake for a good month, and people didn't like me. In fact, I had people who worked for me begging me to smoke, literally like, I kid you not, Gene. I had one guy go, I mean, this will tell you how long ago this was, go to a cigarette machine, buy a pack of the brand that I smoked, and go and just hand them, like wave them in front of my face, going, please, just smoke one.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I didn't, but it just showed just like how ugly I was.
So and you're saying I'm a little grumpy then. Yeah.
Oh my God. I was probably unpleasant to be around. And unfortunately, I had people who worked for me, about 25 of them who had to deal with it in a fairly high stress environment. So that didn't help much either.
I too have had some issues with the nicotines, and and that was, but kind of like tying in a little bit to the evolution thing. What kind of really blew my mind is to learn that our brains have nicotinic receptors in them. Then I kind of didn't feel ashamed anymore. I'm like, oh, of course we do, because we're evolved from stuff, and of course, we are animals and plants, and so
and
it all makes sense.
Plants, and we know how to and we know how to metabolize it and utilize it in such a way that it improves our survival. Right?
It fits like a lock or a key inside of a lock, and so it's like, well, then I guess maybe I won't beat myself up about it. I'll just find a way to either control it or minimize it or whatever, or quit altogether. So
the only thing I beat myself up about with the nicotine stuff was that I was such an asshole for so long after that. Because dude, I was not a pleasant human being to be around, because I was jonesing like mad all the time. And again, I worked a high stress job and had a lot of people who worked for me in a high stress job. And I didn't, and of course, as a smoker, what's your coping mechanism, right?
Smoking.
You get stressed out and stick a butt in your mouth. And at that time, the workplace that I was in, I could smoke. I could smoke during the job. So it was just like, and now I've taken that away from me, and I'm just sitting there.
Was that also at an agency at that time?
No, it was stagehand. I was a stagehand at the time.
Okay.
And you could smoke backstage back then. So
oh man, I mean, it's tough to beat these things, but the cool thing is that as we progress, as science progresses, that we do have better and better tools. They're not perfect, but they offer some hope that you don't necessarily have to get from other things like books. Although it did make me think, you're talking about craving a cigarette, and then the whole Buddhism thing, well, suffering comes from craving. Well, there you go.
It sure did, man. I was craving, and everybody else was suffering.
Everybody was suffering along with you.
There was a lot of suffering going on there. But it was, but kind of to full circle back to the whole idea of theism and changing behavior. Is I think you have to think about what you're getting out of it, right? Like, you are if you are a practicing Buddhist, if you're a practicing Christian, you're a practicing Hindu, what are you getting out of it?
Right.
And how do you break that cycle of behavior? If you really want to, if you're really questioning it, break the cycle of behavior. Don't go to church. Like, don't do the ritual. Don't do the thing.
Right.
So break the cycle of behavior. And then look at the system, right?
Well, but if you don't have religious belief, you can't have any joy in life, right?
No, of course not. I'm the most miserable fuck you've ever met.
But that's the thing, right? With whenever it comes to this cycle of behavior, and then some of the thoughts, some of the myths that we create around all of that we think like, well, you can't be happy unless you have God in your life. And it's like, well,
you can't be happy unless you're spiritual. You have no morality if you're an atheist.
I can't be happy unless I have a drink in my hand, a cigarette in my hand. I can't be happy with that. Well, how do you know? Have you tried?
Have you tried that? How's that working out for you?
Right.
And that's the thing, though. Like, because God, you hit on like a couple of the ones that just drive me batshit, which is, well, how do you have any joy in your life without spirituality? I'm like, dude, I'm having way more joy than you are.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I wake up and I do the things that I do for myself without guilt. I'm not trying to please some dude in the sky. I'm trying to please myself.
Right.
I go to the gym because I like it. And it makes me fitter and healthier. And I don't do it because, Jesus told me that, if I was fitter and healthier, I could serve him better. Well, yeah, okay, whatever. You can't have joy. I'm like, y'all don't know the amount of damn joy I'm having. And that's one that bugs me. And the morality thing always kills me. Well, what moral compass do you have? I'm like, I'm just not a dickhead.
Yeah.
I look, am I harming another human? Am I harming another person or animal in some way?
Right.
And decide not to do that. Nobody has to tell me not to kill people. It seems fairly obvious that that's
seems
not
pretty
positive.
Obvious. Yeah, I definitely like the thought of like, well, I'm just trying not to harm other people because I don't want to cause suffering for them, because I think we could all...
Then they'll all become Buddhists.
Yeah. I mean, I think, can't we all generally accept that suffering is not a desired outcome? Generally, I mean, some people might like it, but they have safe words for it.
But I'm not going to cage them for that.
No, not at all.
Have a good time.
Yeah. So, but yes, try not to make other people suffer. Try not to make myself suffer, if possible, through my own actions. And then, go out and I say, what's our purpose in life? It's not to serve God.
Oh, the damn purpose thing, guys. Yeah. Purpose is bullshit. In all seriousness, like,
we are here to fuck around and find out. That's what we're supposed to do.
Higher order animals, but we're animals, right? Yeah. We're lucky enough to exist. And our purpose is, eventually to become more organic matter that continues this cycle. There's not purpose. It's, you're born, you die, you rot, you grow a plant. I mean, I don't see, that whole need for purpose is egocentric.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, we have thought and all. I'm like, yeah, that's great. That doesn't mean, it just means we were more evolutionarily successful than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why, for me, my purpose is to fuck around and find out, which normally is categorized as a negative thing. Like, oh, you fucked around and found out. Like, no, that's how we discover things. We have to take some risk, and we have to, and you could do that safely, though. There's no harm in that.
It's like, what if you go to hell? I'm like, well, that's the chance I'm taking, guys.
That's the chance I'm going to take. Yeah,
because most likely, I'm pretty sure that, I'm going to, and there's some weird, if you ever get a chance to dig into some of the weird quantum physics about the information has mass and presence, it's kind of fascinating. It makes no sense. And it's this damn
close. Is this the metaphysics thing?
No, it's physics. It's quantum physics. But you read this stuff and it's like, that's this close to religiosity. It's but it's based in actual evidence-based science. So I don't know.
Take a look at it.
Say, right?
Maybe I'll get lucky and find someone that can hop on that's like an expert or something. And,
Good luck. Well, okay. I'm gonna give you two pieces of that.
Okay.
One of which is you will not struggle to find a quantum physicist.
Okay.
What you will struggle to find is a quantum physicist who can explain it.
Oh, well, that's what I'm kind of needed. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You will start speaking in the language of quanta, and you will wish you had taken a flight on Qantas back to Australia or something, because it's fairly impenetrable. And I don't think I'm a dumb guy, but it's fairly impenetrable.
Well, there are concepts that are just, they're hard to wrap your head around. I mean, and that's okay, because at one point I'm sure no one conceived that we would be where we're at today. That would have been inconceivable, right?
Sure.
Like, What do you mean you're talking to somebody face to face over
Well,
what?
I
Over
mean,
what?
having this interaction, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You don't even have to go back. What, maybe, well, I mean, 50 years?
yeah.
Nobody would have thought this was a thing.
No,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, maybe you go back early 20th century where you've got you could conceive watching a video of somebody on TV. I'm trying to remember when TV began. I mean, now it's so part of our lives we don't
TV,
even know, right?
I was going to say, I think the invention was the 30s, but it didn't
Okay.
really become common until the 50s.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
So yeah, good 100 years,
right?
So
I mean,
yeah,
it's just hard to, I mean, sometimes it's hard to fathom that 1950 was 75 years ago, and I wasn't even alive then, but still,
yeah,
you know,
wild. Yeah.
so crazy stuff. Of course, you asked me what happened 25 years ago, and I'm thinking we're talking about the 80s, and it's the year
Right.
2000.
Yeah. I
But
know.
anyway,
Well, it's
so,
like me going to concerts now, and then I see bands that I couldn't go back then. One, because I just didn't have the money, and they didn't come around where I live. So
yeah,
I mean, it was a big deal, And now
yeah,
I'm seeing it. I'm like, listen, guys, I just need you to hold out long enough for me to get a show out of you.
right. Oh,
You know.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It's funny because I don't do it. I listen to a lot of new music, but there are a couple artists that like I would very much, if they came here to Atlanta, I would be there in a heartbeat.
yeah.
One of them is Iggy Pop.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And Iggy is 78 damn years old, and he looks like jerky. And
Yeah.
Rolling Stone once described him as having a voracious appetite for heroin. Now he's been clean for many years.
Yeah. Sure.
You
Yeah.
don't go through that without some scars.
Mm-hmm.
And I figure I don't have too many years left before Iggy either decides like not to tour anymore, or he
Mm-hmm.
just croaks.
Right.
The fact that he's lived this long is actually somewhat remarkable.
Hey,
So
he
he's kind of the
outlasted
Keith
Gigi
Richards.
Allen.
He's the Keith
So
Richards of punk rock, right? So
yeah, I said he outlasted Gigi Allen, so he must be
yeah,
all right.
yeah, absolutely, right.
Because
Shocking.
there's another guy that really talk about a hard life. Wow,
That's right, exactly.
bad choices. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, John, I've really appreciated this discussion,
Dude,
and
this has been a blast.
yeah, it's been a blast. And hey, we should do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Just,
anytime you have somebody bail out on you, need somebody on short notice, call me. I frequently have nothing to do.
So, that's not true. Yeah. Sounds like you're pretty busy and living a full life. So,
absolutely. I'm doing it. I'm doing it despite all the theists.
Yeah, good. Keep it up.
I'm getting all the joy that I can. So,
all right, if you insist. Right. So, thank you very much.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye.